67 years old, he's still getting #1 albums. Who else does this? He's never done a greatest hits tour.
Marshall. Man on a Marshall.
Hello and welcome to Why Paul Weller is the UK's most underrated music artist, a direct response to Andy Edwards. Now Andy Edwards, if you don't know, is an incredible music YouTuber with his own channel, incredibly knowledgeable guy, and I do so much love his content. So imagine my dismay when I'm enjoying yet another one of his top 10 lists. Having recently enjoyed many, such as the top 10 best albums, rock albums of all time, and the 10 greatest noses in rock. That's a great video, check that one out. And this one was the top 10 most pointless solo artists. And I was enjoying this video all the way through, and I'm thinking, I wonder who's going to have at #1. And he lists Paul Weller.
The one that I put at #1, when I thought, let's do pointless celebrities, and this bloke just came into my head straight away. This guy is pointless. And I'm going to say one word. Weller. But he is not one of the UK's great songwriters. He's not as good as everybody thinks, that's the truth. Not Paul Weller. You know, Wild Wild Wood, you ever heard that? Bloody hell.
Andy Edwards, Sir Andy Edwards, he deserves that accolade. Check out his channel, it's fantastic, incredible YouTuber. I know a lot of his lists are done with a certain amount of jest and maybe hoping to get a response from certain sections of the fandom, but I think he sort of, maybe 25% he's testing the limits there, 75% I think he really probably genuinely believes that Paul Weller is a pointless solo artist, and I want to give my case as to why I think he deserves to be named up there with the UK's greats. And when you're talking about household names, I mean alongside Elton John, David Bowie, even Paul McCartney and such. Paul Weller has had 57 top 40 hits in his career, include many #1s. You're talking about a guy who's had as many hits as the biggest names in British music history, but you wouldn't think so through status in the zeitgeist out there. Paul Weller, he tends to be seen as somebody who did great things with the Jam, went astray with the Style Council, and opinions on his solo career can differ, but I think he's got an extraordinary solo career, which is still going strong to this day. He's 67 years old, he's still getting #1 albums. Who else does this? Always new material. He's never done a greatest hits tour. When you think about great names, and think about how their creative period when they were banging out what they're known for today, tends to be like a 10-15 year period, doesn't it? Usually at the beginning of their career. And then it gets some legendary status, but they're relying on that they're doing greatest hits tours, really. Paul Weller's never needed to go out and do that. For years he refused to do Jam songs. He used to weave in a couple of like B-side Style Council numbers into some shows sometimes, but really it's always been new material, new album, new material, and he's been doing that consistently since 1977. Still going strong at 67, still getting #1 albums at 67, still getting critically acclaimed albums. He was nominated for a Mercury Prize, one of his more recent releases. So let's go through my relationship, I suppose, with Mr. Weller, because it's kind of interesting, and it can give the illusion of a structure to this video when it really isn't one. He comes out in 1977 with the Jam. That's sort of at the tail end of punk. They're wearing that energy, but really they're kind of a mod band, but without the soul chops. And yeah, his voice is more suited to spiky rock, it's got that punk edge to it, but they're dressed in their sharp suits, they're using the mod imagery. He's always been a big fan, even at this stage, of like The Who and the Small Faces, in particular Steve Marriott. I mean, that's who he wanted to sing like with the Jam. He would get very close later on. And there's something key that I want to mention as well, just before we get too much into the history. He's got this phoenix from the ashes type story, in that after the Jam and the Style Council, he was dropped by his record label. He didn't have a publishing contract and the band split up. So he's literally in his mid-30s, I suppose. This is like 89. I mean, with music being as creative as it was, as new scenes are emerging, new artists all the time, but proper artists, not like today, people that could play, always emerging, you're on the scrap heap. If you've been dropped by a label in 1989 and you've had a 10-year run at things and you kind of screwed it up, which you did with the end, with the Style Council. Almost self-sabotage, really, but we'll come to that. Yeah, there was no nostalgia interest at that time. There was too much going on. In 1989, you got house coming out, you got acid jazz coming out, you got pop music is getting very dance and hip hop orientated. You got hip hop and R&B replacing soul effectively. It's all changing, and Weller's dropped after 10 years with a great first 5 years and then a bit of a tail off. To come back from that is incredible, which he did. He had to self-finance it. Literally, he went out on the road at some point in 1990 with a handful of musicians, playing to no more than a couple of hundred people. He's back doing that. He's back at grassroots. He's lugging his Marshalls around, and he self-finances his first album, his eponymous first solo album, which I still think is his best. Very soulful record, great soul rock on there. We'll come to that a bit later. But so he self-finances that, and it does okay. I think it gets number 8 in the album charts in the UK. So that's not insignificant when you've been out of the picture for a couple of years. Great songs on that album, but no sort of hits. The hits will come with the next album, Wildwood, which really did get him back in the public eye. And by the time of his third album, solo album, Stanley Road in '95, he's back on top. That's a number 1 album. He's scoring hits with You Do Something To Me, The Changing Man, Broken Stones, Out of the Sinking, which was used by Super Sunday. The Sky had just got the Premier League football, and Super Sunday was their flagship major game on a Sunday after. And Paul Weller's Out of the Sinking from Stanley Road was the theme for a good few seasons as well. He's back on top, and all the bands are shouting him out. Oasis, Noel Gallagher's shouting him out, Blur's shouting him out. He's appearing on stage with all the guys of the Brit-pop scene, if you like. He's the mod father. He's been given his reverence at this time, and he's had to fight back there. And it's an interesting story. It all starts in '77, coming out of the punk thing. His first couple of albums, they're kind of scratchy efforts. They're more leaning into the punk edge from the scene that he came from, but it was clear that by the second album, which didn't sell very well, that they were probably had one more shot at things. And on the third album, he found his writing chops in a big way. All Mod Cons is a great album, tons of songs on there, English Rose and To Be Someone, and it was a huge moment for him, All Mod Cons, and down in the tube station at midnight. So he's scoring hits as well. They're getting big sort of top 10 hits at this time. More radio friendly than before. Hitting the new decade in 1980, and it's number 1s all the way for the Jam. I think Going Underground was their first number 1. They'd had more hits before this with That's Entertainment, and which charted as an import. But yeah, Going Underground, straight in at number 1. That hadn't been done since the Beatles. So the Jam are now setting records not seen since the Beatles. And this happened consecutive times as well. Another record not seen since the Beatles, where their releases straight in at number 1. Town Called Malice, straight in at number 1. So they're just on top of the world. Certainly on top of... They didn't crack America, rather famously, but you know, a lot of bands from that time didn't. They sort of went over there and snarled and spat, and Americans didn't really get that, you know. It wasn't something to look up to, like we always seem to do with loud, you know, bare-chested rock stars throwing things out of hotel rooms. So in the UK and Europe, they're massive. And at the height of their powers, they're still scoring number 1s and number 1 albums. I think they've had 2 consecutive number 1 albums. Paul Weller calls it a day with the Jam. He says, we can't go any further. The first single with Style Council was Speaks Like a Child, which is okay. It's okay. The money go round is okay. Bit cod funk, solid bond in your heart. It's okay. Bit of a northern soul nod. But their moment was to come really after that, and they had a good few years after that. And the Stars Council, they've got their critics. They're not held up really. I mean, they played Live Aid and had a number of big hits, but they're kind of, I think, because at the beginning of at this point, he's really sort of trying to alienate his Jam fan base, and he's doing things like filming homoerotic videos and doing really cheesy interviews and sleeve notes on their releases by a character named the Cappuccino Kid, which I think is Paolo Hewitt, a journalist actually. But it was nonsense stuff, really pretentious. And then he alienated his fan base towards the end as well, but just by releasing whatever he fancied, really. The first album to kill it all off was that orange, just had an orange cover. He tried to do the Beatles' White Album thing, Cost of Loving, which was a good song, but there wasn't much else on that album. In fact, there was a horrific rap record on there. It sold really poorly, and that was the start of the slide. He released a film that no pop band should ever do, Jerusalem, USA, capitalised in that. Don't go and watch it. But again, these things that fans are just going, what is this? It's getting really pretentious, really far out there. Who it's aimed at, you don't quite know. He released an album which sold really poorly, although it's actually quite good. Confessions of a Pop Band is quite good. And there's a number of really good songs on there. It didn't go down well. And then he made a house record, the Style Council did. And Polydor, the label, refused to put it out. And it was unreleased for decades. It eventually came out on a box set. Album refused to be released, dropped, split up. And that's how he found himself in the 1990s. Now, just going back to when he split up the Jam, because it's one of those sort of moments in, you know, at least for Generation X. It's a big moment, that, and a lot of people are still angry over him for doing that. And a lot of people don't get why. If you're listening to those the latter recordings of the Jam, the stuff they're doing towards the end, the singles they're releasing, he's doing, the last single was Beat Surrender. It's kind of a punchy Northern Soul kind of song. Stuff like Precious, you know, quite a funk number. He's brought in horn sections. He's doing covers of Curtis Mayfield, Move On Up, and pulling it off. He's starting to find his singing chops at this point, and clearly that's the direction they're going in. Pity Poor Alfie, another B-side, is getting very soul horn driven by this point, which is why when he starts the Style Council, he ditches the guitar that he's become famous for. He's standing up front and dancing, and he's quite a jerky dancer, as Paul Weller, and this was not a good move, because he's up there doing the kind of, but it's all a bit, the rhythm ain't quite there, it's not happening for you. You need that, he needs that crux, you know, he needs the guitar. But he's trying to reinvent himself. When you consider that sound that he's trying to achieve with the Jam, it's certainly what the Style Council would become. So you can see, he obviously felt that Rick and Bruce arguably weren't up to doing that, although when you listen to the Jam soulful stuff that they're doing at the end there, they arguably could. But I think he just wanted a breakaway. It's like, with these guys, I'm just known for eating rifles and going underground, and I'm gonna have to start again. And so he paired up with Merton Parker, you know, like a mod band. Mick Talbot, who was also briefly a member of Dexys Midnight Runners, but he was also, he was in the Merton Parkers. You know, there's the mod link there. It's not so much about RAF targets, the symbology that used by the Who. They're not so much copying that now. Now it's much more about sharp clothes and style, hence the Style Council, which I always thought was a good band name. So it took them a couple of years to get started. They dripped out singles, an EP, and then their first album. I'm in the balls on this guy. After peeing off all his fan base, he releases an album that half of it is instrumental and kind of like pop jazz, really. It's not bad. Cafe Bleu has some great moments on there. You're the Best Thing is on this, which is one of their best songs, and it's one of Paul Weller's best songs. Hitting the falsetto there in the chorus, lovely sort of guitar riff through that, beautiful ballad, You're the Best Thing. One of the band's highlights. There was another big single on Cafe Bleu. But the big stuff was to come, you know. On the next album, Our Favourite Shop, he had Shout to the Top, he had Walls Come Tumbling Down. It was quite a political album as well. It came out in 85, I believe. 84, 85, or it's being recorded in 84, which is when you had the miners' strike in the UK, and he's always worn his left-wing politics on his sleeve a little bit. We certainly did around this time, and quite actively got involved in politics, which was another of those things later on with the Style Council, which would only serve to harm them when he got involved with something called Red Wedge. Our Favourite Shop was a really good album. It was a #1 album. The Style Council's only #1 album with those top singles on there and some really good biting social commentary at the time. Homebreakers, which was in reference to Norman Tebbit, when he told the working class effectively to get on your bike if you want to find work, having closed down all the industry in their towns, meaning you'd have to go to the southeast or to London or other parts of the country if you wanted to work and get used to that idea. So Homebreakers, as the title suggests, is a good response to that. There was other songs, A Stone's Throw Away, all to do with this period in British history and the miners' strike. And there was a lot of unemployed people at this period. And Weller's there, whether you agree with the politics or not, it's really well written stuff, you know, and that even holds up today. Even you can, given the context, you listen to it and go, wow, that's some sharp lyrics there. And put together with really good music quite often. They're at their peak at this point, is Mick and Paul. Yeah, and then came sort of a handful of singles, Long Hot Summer and, you know, a few other big hits before the slide started to happen, before he started alienating his fans more and more. So we're into the 90s now, he's dropped, he's come back. This first album, I want to speak about this album, why it's so important to me, and why it's my favourite Paul Weller album of all his career, and it's one of my favourite, it's possibly my favourite album. Here's why, it's an unusual choice really. I'm going to get a refill for this, so coffee time. Replenished. So this section I think I'm going to call The Soul of Paul Weller, and explain how I became to be a fan, because it's a weird thing, but I was a soul boy for right up until my mid-20s really, or early 20s, and I would not listen to anything else, hardly. A bit of pop, a bit of top 40, you know, a bit of Top of the Pops and all that sort of thing, but be very selective about what I liked or bought. Mostly though, in the record collection there is soul music, and by the end of the 80s I'm getting into the offshoots of house and acid jazz and things like this. Black music really of the day, hip hop as it's coming through, you know. And this is a weird thing, because I'm actually from the same town as Paul Weller. I'm from Woking, which is in Surrey, in the southeast of England there. And of course I'm aware of Paul Weller growing up. I'm growing up in the 80s, you know, it's a small town. Like my sister knew his sister. Things like that. You'd often hear his name about the place. You knew of songs. I remember when certain songs came out, and being in certain circles where, you know, Paul Weller was idolised, but just sort of stay clear of it all, like I did most rock. Liked what I liked, very selective about it. It tended out to be quite easy on the ear. But this has always been curious to me, why in leafy Surrey there, why it's not just me. Everyone is listening to soul music, and it's a really, in the 1980s and 90s, this is a really white middle class leafy area, and Woking is a small town still at this point. And why we're all listening to soul, I don't know. I'm talking, when I say we, I mean my family, my friends, schoolmates, everyone. Because if you listen to, I've got a lot of friends like Andy Edwards who are from the Midlands and other parts of the country, and of course they're listening to rock. It makes sense they're listening to rock. This is Generation X. This is on the back of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and obviously the stuff from the 60s which sparked it all off. This is the generation where rock belongs to them really. But why we're mostly shunning it? I'll give you an example. I used to do a paper round at 12 and 13, and so did a few of my friends, you know. In our Walkman, it's not Appetite for Destruction or the Smiths or anything. It's Luther Vandross albums. It's those early Forever for Always for Love and Never Too Much. Up until 86, this would be Give Me the Reason. I remember that being on there. I was a bit too early with the Guns N' Roses reference there, but perfectly fine with the Smiths. But you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's Jeffrey Osborne, it's Alexander O'Neill, it's lovey-dovey, smoochy soul stuff of the day. You know, if I talk about my family, in my sister's room, I've got 3 older siblings. My sister's blaring out the Stylistics and Odyssey, amongst others. My brother is blaring out Luther Vandross and these kind of Freddie Jackson, these kind of artists. My middle brother, just above, 2 brothers, they're both middle, but the younger middle of the 4 of us, he's blaring out, he's into breakdance, and so he's got electro and all that stuff blasting out of his room, you know, and it's all black music, and I don't know why. All my friends, it's all the same, it's all black music. Everyone's going back as well, everyone knows anything and everything to do with Motown and this great stuff of the 70s and James Brown, and we know it all. You know, when all that hip hop and house come out, all that sampling and stuff, we know all those references. We've been listening to them since we're 10, 11 years old. Why that is, I don't know. It's it always strikes me as a very strange thing. But I'm mentioning all this because, yeah, I'm shunning Paul Weller right up until my 20s. It's actually my black friend Jay Shaw, who is the brother of Richard Shaw, who played for Crystal Palace for many years and got a few England call-ups. It's my black friend Jay Shaw who turns me on to Paul Weller because of how soulful he is. I remember him saying, do you listen to Paul Weller? And I was like, no, I'm not interested in that. What, Town Called Mountain? No. I probably knew 2 songs, you know. Shout to the Top, that was all right, but nah. And he said, it's really soulful, you got to listen. And he played that first album, the eponymous first solo album. And he played a song called Strange Museum. And I still think this song is absolutely, for anyone who might snigger at the idea that Paul Weller can't sing soul, I would say listen to Strange Museum.
Come on in, the mission's free.
Man on a Marshall.
I won't refuse those who wanna see.
Man on a Marshall.
I said it's strange.
Man on a Marshall.
And I would also say listen to his version of I'd Rather Go Blind, which he included as a B-side on Changing Man, I believe.
I was just
Man on a Marshall.
I was just yeah.
Man on a Marshall.
Sitting here thinking.
Man on a Marshall.
In the 90s, this is where Weller sounds great. I don't think he sounds so great these days. He's got more of a crooning style these days as he's calmed down in his old age with a younger wife and a few kids running around. He gave up the booze, lost that anger that was always there, that I think the alcohol might have fueled, and he's got more of a crooning style I don't like at all. But he's still scoring #1 albums, so what can you say? For me, his last good album was 2020 on Sunset. That was #1. He had another #1 album after that. So it's the mid-90s now, and I'm being played this album from 91. He self-financed his debut solo album because he was skint and on his arse. And on this is great songs like Above the Clouds and Amongst Butterflies and Clues. Good soulful vocal delivery, good rock in places. It's got Into Tomorrow, which he says is the song that gave him back his fire, having been dropped by his label. It's Into Tomorrow that gives him back his spark, gives him back his belief. He'd written songs before that on the comeback trail, but that was the one that really got things moving, and it was a mainstay, still is, I think, in his live shows. And this was followed up with Wildwood. Stanley Road had just come out. Yeah, I'm going back and I'm listening to these albums and going back and listening to those influences. Steve Marriott with the Small Faces, Stevie Winwood, and Paul McCartney, you know, talking about, you know, sort of rock pop stars that can sing good soul. I mean, Paul McCartney is one of the best speeches ever. 3 times out I've been making this video, my mics kept cutting out, that little green light kept going off, and I'll be waffling away and there'd be nothing recorded. 3 times. You can probably tell from how big is this line here now. Yeah, I'm miffed, you can tell. And I'm going bareback now. There's no microphone. This is straight into the phone mic. This is unprotected narration. And probably a lesson here that I need to get much better at this and and not dither so much in my speech and just crack on and speak at a faster rate and get these bloody videos done in the time that it takes for these microphones to lose their little bit of back. It's supposed to be an hour, that was never an hour. And 2 mics went. I don't know how that's possible. And this is not the first day of me going through this, trying to make this video, so I don't even know. I think something about Paul McCartney being able to bellow out blues as good as anyone. Yeah, that's true. In the context of Weller there, I guess I was probably talking about how my friend introduced me to Paul Weller, then introduced me to a whole host of that incredible, the best music of the 60s, 70s in particular. 80s, moments, nostalgic value, yes, moments, certain movements, certain subcultures and some, but a lot of the 80s is just utter cheese, isn't it? But the 90s, it come back in a big way, and I'm a young man in the 90s. I'm 17 in 1990, obviously 27 by the time the decade's out, and that's my glory years, and Britpop and Weller back on top. All those great bands that come out of that period, you know, Oasis, Radiohead, Pulp, and Blur, and The Verve, and all of it. An absolutely great time for music, I think. Big love to Weller, who's still doing it, still doing his thing. He's lost the anger now. As well, the soul, the raspy soul has gone from his voice. But, you know, who sounds great in their late 60s? Who's still relevant, making new material regularly, every couple of years, new album, going in at #1, top 40 hits in there. Who else is doing this? So that's my case for why Paul Weller is what's the opposite of pointless? Pointed? A pointed artist? That's why Paul Weller is a pointed artist. No, that's why he's a great artist, a legendary artist, an underrated artist, particularly in British pop culture, who deserves bigger accolades than he gets. And I do get the feeling that he'll get his dues when he dies, which is a bit of a morbid thing to say, but he's not good at selling himself in that kind of way that you're expected to do, especially today. He's never been good at that sort of stuff, and that's always held him back to being crap at interviews and keeping things really just on quite a little clique of group of friends and musicians and music publications that will do interviews for and things like that. Very much guitar magazines and things like that. You know, he's always kept it down at that level, but he deserves to be up there. And I think when he goes, his star will be up there, shining as bright as those big household names that I've mentioned. When people go through his catalogue and say, wow, I forgot about all of that, I forgot he did that, and I forgot, oh, look how many #1s, look how many hits. Why does nobody talk about this guy? Look what he did, and he did it here with the Jam, and he did it in another incarnation here with the Style Council, and then his solo career was all of this. But he's going to be doing this into his 70s, no doubt, and his star will be up there shining as bright as anyone's, and I'll look up and I'll wish upon that star, I will. And Andy Edwards will be made to eat humble pie, which is another reference to Steve Marriott. And I'm going to have to end it on that, aren't I? Because I think even in time, Andy Edwards and detractors of Paul were just, he's that mod thing and a few hits, and people are dismissive in many. Derivative is a common thing that's said. Oh, I like Paul Weller's all right, but he's a bit derivative. Like, who isn't? Who wasn't in the 90s? Who wasn't coming out of that punk thing doing the same thing as everyone else, or trying to ape the Beatles at various points, or just borrowing heavily on those, even nicking without hiding it, the odd riff here and there. Everyone does that, but you know, to be banging out albums every 2 or 3 years in the way that he does, all new materials, never doing greatest hits tours, not needing to. Always go when he goes out on the road, he's doing his latest material and it sells out. And still to this day, it happens that way. There's no other artist doing that, and so that's why he's relevant. And I didn't finish on the Humble Pie Steve Marriott reference, and I'm regretting that now because I don't know how to end this. Going underground, is there a reference there for Paul eventually slipping off this? No, it's not. Get off the deaf side of things. Let's go with a brand new start, because he's going to be 70 soon, and there'll be a whole new thing going on. But first of all, you need to get out of Black Barn Studios, Paul. You got a bit comfortable in there. That's your own studio. It's there in Ripley, beautiful village. All your mates come. They're all a bit sycophantic now. I don't mean to be disrespectful. They're all great musicians, I know. But let's be honest. You get on the phone, and they're going to be hair drying their fringe. They're going to be gelling their sideburns forward, and they're going to get on their scooter, and they're going to scooter straight over to Black Barn Studios, and they're going to be there for you at a drop of a hat, a pork pie hat maybe. You never know. And you know that's going to happen, and you got very used to it, you got very comfortable with it, Paul, and you got to change that vocal styling. I don't like it. You got to get back to get some soul in there again if you can still get some rasp, if you still got some anger in that teetotal voice of yours, you got to try and get it out and get some soul out. Get away from the Black Barn studio. Go book another studio. Pay money for it. Get some edge back. Get some Jeopardy. Some stakes involved again, and you'll bang out. You'll have another top moment, another revival moment. I mean, you're still getting number ones. You don't. Who's talking about revival? But I mean, in the consciousness of the sheeple out there, the general normies, you know, they forget about you from time to time, and occasionally you need to prod them with an amazing piece of work just to say, I'm still here I'm still racking up these hits. You need to do it, Paul. So get out of Black Barn and get Steve White back for just for the shits and giggles of it. I'm not nothing against your current drummers, plural. And then you got two of them fella. You got that young fella there with the all gelled forward and that drop of a hat. Yeah, I'm there, don't worry. You got him, and you got the other fellow who's a bit chunkier. And you need to shut up the likes of Sir Andy Edwards, one of my favourite YouTubers. I do say all of this with the utmost love and respect. Rick Beato's out there. He's he is the YouTuber of all YouTube. He is the Paul Weller of the mod revival movement in YouTube sense. He is the guy with the millions and millions, and I've not heard him speak about Paul Weller before. And on that note, I'm looking up at the stars. I'm waiting for that star to shine bright in the sky, because it's already shining bright here on Earth. This is good, isn't it? This is my ending. I'm waiting for it to shine bright in the sky. It's already shining bright here on Earth, but people aren't looking. They seem to be blind. They don't want to see that star. They don't want to see Weller's bright light still banging out the number ones and the hits at 67 years of age. They don't want to, but they're gonna when it can't be avoided up there in the sky. And then he will get his dues. The UK's most underrated artist.